Third part. That's a relief, Iriya said, finally speaking, once they were back on Main Street. Darkness was falling. All the gates around the town would be shut now. Now all he has to do is grow up good. Maybe he'll be screwed up. What? Feeling less like someone had just rained on her parade and more like a horrible sadness had washed over her, Iriya pulled tight on the reins. When she heard the sharp whistle of the wind, Iriya felt cold steel against the nape of her neck. Dee's quick draw. She hadn't been able to react to it at all. Before we went to Laszlo's house, you would have parried that. Iriya couldn't refute what the hunter said. It's not your fault, but you've started thinking about your own future. In her heart, Iriya nodded agreement. Laszlo's calming voice came back to her. We'll be waiting. No matter what happens, please come back to us. It was an incantation for reclaiming what had been lost. She would return to this town and live with Meeker. She'd lead a new life. For Iriya, it was just like the days of old that had been taken away from her in that valley. Something she'd thought forgotten had begun to give off a golden glow. And it was starting to quietly dissolve the iron will that kept Iriya focused on her mission. She shouldn't have gone there. The teacher's house had possessed a glow that was poison to Iriya in her present condition. You're exactly right, Iriya said, nodding. I've gone soft. Stay here, Blade. I can't die here. There was the sound of Dee's sword rasping into its sheath. I'm going. Before the hunter's icy words had ended, Iriya suggested, wait until tomorrow? Dee started off. If you've got business to settle with those guys, you're better off sticking with me. I'm convinced they've got more in mind than just a preemptive strike against the one hunting them. The fact that Mitterhaus tried to kidnap me instead of killing me is proof of that. Don't you want to know why? Besides, you're the one who took me to that house just now. If that's what's thrown me out of whack, you should at least help me get back to normal, shouldn't you? Dee halted. Until noon tomorrow. I don't think it'll kill you to wait that long. Iriya called out to his back, which was still turned to her. Had he turned around, Dee would have found that hitherto unseen earnestness clouded the girl's face in the darkness. Page break. Mining towns, like any community centered around a given occupation, were filled from first light with unique sounds, the tolling of bells, the creak of wagon wheels, the whinnying of horses, shouts, screams, the whine of swords slicing through the air, and gunshots. To these common noises the sounds of boat engines would be added in a fishing village, or the clamor of feeding and training and the cries of supernatural beasts, created up for sale in a town where guard beasts were raised. And in a mining town, the drone of gantry cranes, jackhammers, and backhoes in operation was an irreplaceable part of the environment. However, today things were a little different. From early in the morning, speakers concealed around town had been playing a hymn that had been unearthed in the southern frontier sectors about a century earlier. We shall not veer from thy path, the path thou hast shown us, even though strangers may reject thy guidance. Shortly before noon, the hotel message boy came up to Dee's room and handed him a note from Iriya. Come to the west end of Main Street at 12 o'clock, it instructed him. Though ash-gray clouds covered the world, A golden glow leaking through them was proof that the sky above was clear. At 10 minutes to 12, Dee left the hotel. The eyes of pedestrians were drawn to him as if they were possessed, and on more than a few occasions there was trouble as people or wagons bumped into one another. Prostitutes, clad in the scantest possible traces of garishly hued clothing, fell over themselves in front of the bordellos, while upstanding women and their daughters reeled, assailed by dizziness and forced to sit and rest in chairs, lined up on the front porches of various buildings. As Main Street fell into a panic, Dee reached its west end. A woman in a white dress stood there. Her hair was pulled back in a bun, held in place by a hairband ornamented with crystals, and the white veil of her forehead fluttered in the wind. In her left hand she gripped a longsword, both inappropriate and horrifying. As she came closer, the faint aroma of perfume wafted around her. The girl was Iriya. "Been to the barber?" Dee inquired. Iriya grinned wryly. "What else could I expect from a man like you?" Her expression seemed to say, "Oh, you. It's called a beauty parlor." The hoarse voice chortled, but that ended with a pained groan. "Well, how do you like my outfit?" Taking hold of her skirt, Iriya spun around in an easy circle for him. Nothing from Dee. "We'd better go to the school for the wall racing. That's the whole reason I picked this up at the used clothes shop." Oddly enough, mining towns like Clemens didn't have many stores that sold brand new, ready-made clothes. When there was call for such finery, a person had to wait for the merchant wagons to arrive from the capital, or make a special order. If not for that, life on the frontier wouldn't be possible. Inevitably, new clothes would make their way into second-hand shops, and that was where Iriya had made this purchase. The gloves that came all the way up to her elbows were embroidered with flowers, and the dress itself was also covered with them. Roses. "Well?" Iriya asked again. She was clearly expecting compliments. "It looks good on you," Dee said in a voice of iron. "How sweet of you to say that," Iriya replied, shaking with joy. This wasn't the callous warrior woman who'd slain her own brother, but an ordinary country girl. "But, did you know when you bought it?" "Know what?" Iriya furrowed her brow, with a look on her face like she made some terrible mistake. She ventured, "I just picked out the prettiest thing they had in the window." And he immediately gave her the answer. "It's a wedding dress." Iriya was speechless. "Good thing we're not going to a groundbreaking for a church, eh? People might get the wrong idea." "Oh no." With desperation on her face, Iriya looked down at the outfit she wore. I'd never so much as been to a wedding in the nearby village. I must look like an idiot. I'll go change." Just as she was about to run off, a black-gloved hand caught her by the elbow. "What?" "It looks good on you," Dee told her once more, turning east. The hymn continued. "Though we may walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no harm, for thou art with us." "Hey!" Reaching for the longsword that had been effortlessly snatched away, Iriya looked at the culprit. A sword doesn't suit a bride, Dee said. Sighing, Iriya blurted out something that was hardly appropriate, given the way she was dressed. You've left me completely naked. Quietly gazing at Dee, she slipped her hand under his left arm. As a result, you'll have to protect me. As the two of them started to walk down the sidewalk, a trio of beauticians popped out of the beauty parlor, and they could only watch in stunned silence as the pair went by. That's just beautiful, they said in voices that were practically sighs, after the backs of the pair were only a distant blur. The hymn rang out up ahead. It was borne on the wind. The boards of the sidewalk creaked beneath the pair's feet, and every time there was a step up, Iriya had to lift the hem of her dress. And when they came to the end of the sidewalk and stepped down to the ground, the clouds broke apart, sending a single beam of light down on the pair. The crowd stirred. Voices clamored in admiration. For an instant, they dreamed of beauty. They didn't awake from that dream until the pair arrived at the site of the groundbreaking. A platform had been set up in front of the framework for the schoolhouse, and Laszlo's mother was leading the choir. Headed for the platform to the left, Laszlo was the first to notice the pair. He let out a gasp as he froze stiff. On noticing his reaction, about 30 people in attendance turned one after another in a chain reaction, with Laszlo's mother the last to be stunned. After not moving a muscle for almost 10 full seconds, finally, the teacher began. Everyone, on this auspicious wall-raising day, we have another cause for celebration. Due to the arrival of this lovely pair. My, how gorgeous. It's like a dream, isn't it? No one noticed the sadness in the teacher's tone. So kind of you to come. Congratulations to you both. Have you ever seen such a wonderful groom? Have you ever seen such a powerful groom? A lovely bride? He clapped his hands, and the sound spread through the crowd, and with the applause of countless pairs of hands raising in the light that spilled from between the clouds. Something glistened in Iriya's eye. Just then there was an angry shout of "Stop your damn clapping." A rough-looking man on the other side of 50 had stepped in front of Iriya. Though many of the participants were just passing through, and by the look of the clothes it seemed he was from town. The man jabbed a knobby finger toward Iriya's face, shouting, "A bride. Don't make me laugh. See, I know her. I seen her with my own 2 eyes. When she lopped off the heads of 3 guys even younger than she is in one go." The man's voice quavered, and even his finger shook. "You remember that, Missy? It was about 6 months ago. In a town in the western frontier called Trinidad. I was in the bar having a drink when you followed them kids in. They were covered in blood, and you were clean as a whistle. And the 3 of them asked the bartender and the customers for help. Some folks tried to step in, but you just pummeled them like it was nothing. Then you beheaded 2 of the boys, and the 3rd was on his knees begging for his life. Had his hands folded together like this. Asked you to spare him. Said it'd break his parents' hearts. He was even engaged to be married. But you didn't show him no mercy. So then, get this. You walked out of there carrying the 3 heads. Blood was still spraying from the damn bodies." There the man paused his accusations to catch his breath. Uriya didn't say a word. There was neither pain nor conflict to be found in her pale, beautiful features, but the raggedly breathing man, and the sword scar on his right cheek, seemed to be in strangely sharp relief. "Wait just a minute, Caleb," Laszlo's mother said. "I've heard this woman's a hunter. Isn't there a chance she had good reason for slaying those wee boys? What do you say about it, Miss Uriya?" Smiling, Uriya said, "Thank you." She immediately turned around. "It's a common enough tale. Dee, let's go." "Are you going to run?" "Listen, you mustn't run," Laszlo called out to her. "You should address these charges. If you're clear of them, we won't stop you. However, if you had a reason for fighting them, if it was justified, you need to tell us about it. Isn't that the duty of any upstanding person?" "That's right," his mother said. "Justified," Uriya murmured. "If I had to say one way or the other, there's more toward me being in the clear, but too much talking tires me out." Uriya was about to walk off, but she halted. Dee's hand was on her elbow. "Dee?" It seems she was justified, though that's a word I haven't heard in a very long time. For a second, Uriya made a move as if to jerk free of Dee's hand, while she glared at the hunter's face. But then she relented, giving Dee's hand a light tap so he'd release her. She headed toward the man named Caleb. The man averted his gaze. He hadn't expected a return volley. "Those three were frauds," Uriya said clearly. "They'd rough themselves up, and then go around asking people for help. And they'd already got 2 hunters killed that way. But if I'd explained that to everyone back then, you think they would have believed me? Though that's hardly what this is about, is it?" Uriya aimed her finger at the man's cheek. "You were waiting for me on the edge of town, weren't you? Told me that if I didn't want you spreading rumors about how I'd murdered them that day, I was going to have to be yours. Wasn't that scar on your cheek your reward for trying to trump me?" Shut your damn mouth. Who the hell would you believe? All of you, you know me. I'm from right here in town. Don't listen to no damn hunter vagabond." "Stop it, Caleb," said a strong female voice from atop the platform. "Now you're the one under suspicion. Is what she said true?" "Come on, Mrs. Laszlo." He pointed at Uriya, preparing fresh abuse. "Enough, Caleb," said the sheriff as he stepped from the crowd. "It so happens we got word from the Trinidad Sheriff's Office about that incident. It's like the girl says. Okay, back to your home. You two get going too." Taking Uriya by the arm, Dee turned around. As they started to walk away side by side, behind them a voice shouted, "Screw with me, will you?" Drawing the revolver from his hip, Caleb steadied the weapon with both hands as he took aim. "Stop," the sheriff shouted, going for the gun on his hip. A horizontal glint of silver split the field of view of those present. A hilt blade, thin as a willow leaf, had mercilessly slashed through Caleb's carotid artery. The huntress had kept a concealed weapon. The blood spurted out forcefully to assail Uriya's dress, and a wall of black intercepted it. Dee's coat. It stopped the bright blood, protecting her spotless outfit. Dee, let's go. Iriya's right hand was still extended toward the man. Without even bothering to look at her, Dee gave her a tap on the shoulder. The crowd was frozen. Facing them, Iriya bowed her head. Goodbye, and thank you. No one responded to Iriya's parting words. The crowd saw only death. As they left, he said, "It was self-defense, Sheriff. No need to take a statement." The light was once more concealed behind the clouds. As the pair of melancholy figures walked off into the grey world, the hymn continued to echo from on high. We shall not veer from thy path, the path thou hast shown us. Chapter 4, End.